I'm Tim Ellis. Thanks for joining us for Laneway Live. Tonight's special guest is a master of modern deception. He's a gentleman of deceit, and he has a very challenging last name. Please welcome Alex de la Rambelje.
Good enough. Good enough. Better than most people.
How should I call you? You've got so many names. You've got Alex de la Rambelje. You've got Alex Unexplainable and Alex the Magician.
Yeah. Yes. Well, Alex Unexplainable was the name that I created to basically rule out those problems you just had. The problem of an MC just basically losing their mind trying to say my name, which is never good. You want that momentum to travel as they introduce you. So, you know, you'd always hit that break where they read all of the intro and then they get to the name and then the car would just stop, would just hit a skid. So yeah, the Alex Unexplainable was to solve that problem. Then Alex the Magician is just for my family kids magic capacity, and Alex de la Rambelje is for all of my legal documents.
I've known you for so long and I still have trouble with your name. I can't believe this. I'm embarrassed.
Yeah. It's just not phonetic. It's not fair for anyone who pretty much no one from any background can pronounce it, because the name itself is a combination of French and Dutch, and so neither the French nor the Dutch can make sense of it.
And have you found
they both can't deal with one aspect of the name?
Have you found Alex Unexplainable all right, or does people stumble over that as well?
Alex Unexplainable works pretty well, although it's hard for people to not put in the Alex the Unexplainable, but I'll take whatever I get. It's better than Alex. It's better than that.
So nobody's tried to go, oh, Alex Inexplicable.
That's happened a few times. Absolutely. Yeah. They don't get the very precise thinking with the repetition of the EX sound and the A sound in the two words. They haven't thought that through.
Amazing. So you are in your home right now, in your home studio?
I am, yeah. This is a spare room that I've turned into a magic class space. And I haven't done any, I've done 2 shows in here, but I haven't done any which were family shows. I haven't had any more adult corporate shows, but I've got one lined up on Friday, so I'm keen to see how it goes.
All right. So that's a corporate gig for a company who are like after work drinks or something?
Exactly. Yeah. They're going to throw to me during their after work drinks. And yes, and I'll just do a 20-30 minute spot. And I think that I'll include a teacher trick. I don't think I have the confidence to do a full show per se in the Zoom format. I think there has to be some interactivity. Maybe that's just because I haven't overcome that hurdle of making it a full performance.
The good thing with Zoom is that whole interactivity and just being able to say, hey, John, can you just chat to me now? Or Bill, you know, and really having that one-on-one conversation with the entire audience at the same time. It's really cool. And I think once you get through it a few times, you'll just go like, I didn't realize I could do that. It is
absolutely. I was thinking about it. I imagine there'd be some effects that would actually work better on Zoom, like a confabulation or other things which involve, you know, being able to see small objects, obviously, in a big space. So yeah, I'm keen to see how it plays.
Well, also, if you have somebody there with you, your secret hidden assistant, there's so many things you can do. Unfortunately, I don't have that luxury. I'm locked down by myself. But if you happen to ask somebody to name an object, that object just might conjure itself up on the table under a cloth mysteriously.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes stooging much easier, for sure, when you can chat to people, or if you've got someone, you know, keyed in advance.
Well, the other thing I was going to ask is your classes, which have been very popular. You're teaching magic classes. You don't normally teach magic classes as such, but you've decided to lash out and give it a go here?
No, I don't. Well, I do teach in the sense that I've got a teaching qualification, so a high school teaching degree. Yeah. And I've been doing a fair bit of that over the years, just as a point of difference, something to do alongside being a magician. I personally find just having my whole entity wrapped up in being a performer kind of means that fun aspect of being a performer becomes the work aspect, and it just gets a bit too hard to deal with. So for me, becoming a teacher was actually so that the magic would become a bit more special. And I've been doing quite a bit of relief teaching over the last couple of years. I didn't do much while Australia's Got Talent was happening and following on from that. But the last 2 years, I've done quite a bit of it. And then when all of this happened, it seemed like a natural segue to go from, and I really love teaching kids. And so it just seemed, had 1,000 boxes of magic tricks that wasn't able to sell at the comedy festival. So it was just a match made in heaven.
So are you also doing any relief teaching online for regular teaching other than magic teaching?
That hasn't started yet, and I don't think it will. I think that the duty of care aspect of being a relief teacher doesn't exist anymore because kids are at home for the large part, and so they don't have that requirement to have a teacher. Normally with a school, legally there has to be an adult in the room to make sure the kids aren't killing themselves, and so that's where the legal necessity kicks in. And so I think with this new way of working, schools are just cutting. They just don't need relief teachers anymore.
So what about private tuition from kids who just want to get a bit ahead under these conditions?
Yeah, I think that I've heard that is becoming, that is building, and that people who are doing tuition are getting there. But unfortunately, my methods are drama and English. And so drama, obviously, a bit hard to do online drama. Although I did speak to someone the other day at NIDA, and she said that they're managing to make it work, doing their classes online. But yeah, I couldn't think of an easy way to do it, without investing a lot of time and energy into coming up with a plan.
Well, at least there are a few options at the moment. And as you said, you had your comedy festival show cancelled. I know that was going to be a very big event for you. When did that hit? Because I know there was a big controversy at first. As soon as the comedy festival cancelled, there was the problem that they may not give anyone their registration fees back.
Yeah, well, look, the moment that they decided to cancel, I think, was a massive sigh of relief for everyone involved. I think the part of it that was more challenging was the time before, where they were kind of dragging their feet a little bit, and they were potentially leaving it up to the individual producers to decide whether or not they carried on. It wasn't clear how it was going to play out. But then when they pulled the pin, and eventually they decided to obviously refund the deposits and the venue, the registration fees as well, then that was a big sigh of relief, I think. But that the term unprecedented times has been bandied around a lot lately, and I think for them it's completely unprecedented too. Like, they obviously have been beneficiaries of the big arts stimulus that the state government has just announced. So clearly they were in a pretty dire strait situation financially too. So can't lay blame on any one party. I don't think it's just a black hole of ticket sales suddenly opened up, and they just had to scramble to solve it, because it wouldn't be in anyone's interest if the festival, folded completely, permanently either. So
no, it's
pretty tricky.
Too big a machine to collapse like that. So what shows did you have lined up?
I had my Make Your Parents Disappear show with Luke, the kids show that Luke and I have been doing for the last 5 or 6 years at the Spiegel tent at the Arts Centre. So that's, it's been heaps of fun over the last however many years. And this is obviously, with what's happened this year, that hasn't gone ahead. So we'll probably look to do that next year. So there's just that. And then the adult shows with Luke and Vion, we Gentlemen of Deceit, the show that we've done in the past, we had sort of explored that this year, and it didn't come to fruition, which was a blessing in disguise. So, but yes, the kids shows are probably my main focus with the public shows at the moment.
Well, tell us how Make Your Parents Disappear came about, because that was one of those shows that just, for whatever reason, as soon as you came up with that title, it just went through the roof.
Yeah, it started out as a education, like a school show. It was called The Magic of Your Imagination, and it was a show that Luke and I put together to do theatre and education, so touring schools and delivering, educational content, going through the school syllabus and picking out the things that you can target in the school curriculum. And then we were picked up by a producer in Adelaide who wanted to, Sydney, who wanted to bring the show up to Sydney. And then he actually made the suggestion, what if it was called Make Your Parents Disappear? And then he gave us that suggestion, and we thought, gosh, wouldn't that be amazing? And and therefore, you know, the obvious conclusion is we've got to come up with a way to make one of the mums and dads from the audience vanish by the end of the show. Couldn't not deliver on that title. So yeah, he gave us the idea for the title, and we came up with the premise for the show, at least the actual execution of the title.
So he gets free drinks whenever you're in Sydney.
Pretty much, yes. Although we did make the mistake of, we were umming and ahhing a little bit about whether or not the parent had to reappear at the end of the show. So make the parent disappear. We weren't sure. We were on the fence, like, you know, I'll be dramatic, make it a sudden ending, you know, no need to bring the parent back. We did realize that we had to deliver on the promise of making the dad disappear, and as well as bringing him back, because we had one of our early shows at Adelaide Fringe where we entirely forgot about the cue of bringing dad back at the end of the show. And after the show, some parents came up with kids that were beside themselves with worry and concern for this dad who was stuck in some, you know, upside down world or something. So we had to find the dad and bring him over to assure the kid that everything was fine. So we learned our lesson pretty quickly.
You so the show itself had a storyline about your two kids.
Yeah, the show's evolved. We've settled. It's changed quite a few times, and the current iteration of the show is that we're two brothers that are basically stuck in detention at magic school, and there's quite a few. There's a B story to the show as well. There's an A story and a B story. The A story is about getting out of detention, and the B story is about getting revenge on the parents who've played a prank on us to make us land up in detention. It's complicated. You got to see it. You have to see it.
You have to wait to buy your tickets when it comes back again. But you've had different versions of it. You had like how many? 3 different versions of the show? But are they essentially the same plot?
Yeah. The plot has changed over time, and then the routines obviously change as well. And then we come up with new ways of driving the plot, the same plot or a similar plot with different routines. But essentially the plot has probably changed in a big way only 3 times.
But the parent still disappears at the end.
Yes, parent always disappears. Can't get away from that. But there's been some shows that's been about the project that we failed to deliver on was that we need to make something levitate. So we've got to come up with a solution to escape from detention by making something float. And then other versions have been, there's been a homework bomb that's going to go off by the end of the show. Then other versions have been where we've been at home and parents have been telling us to go to bed, and it's a long history.
Now, kids often like to see familiar things. They like to watch the same movie over and over again. Do you get kids who come to see your show and then come back and see the next version and go, oh, it was different, and they're happy or they're upset? Or
people seem mostly happy whether they're seeing something again or seeing something for the first time. I think that especially kids, you're right, they don't see repetition as a bad thing. They like a chance to see something twice. So I don't think you can really go wrong as long as you treat the kids with respect and know that they're critical thinkers and understand that they don't understand irony as much. 2 main things: treat them with respect, know that irony isn't so much on their radar. And then you'll be fine. The worst mistake I've seen has been people, not magicians, but comedians who've basically, I think, gone into a kid's show with the assumption that, oh, they're 4 times younger than an adult, it'll be 4 times easier. And that's not true.
the thing I enjoyed about your work with the kids is you don't treat them like kids. You treat them, I mean, you acknowledge that they're kids, but you don't treat them like kids.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you talk to them like they're an equal, as I said, but you don't try to be sarcastic or ironic. That doesn't register for them, I don't think. So it's like in any education environment too. You know, you treat the kids with respect. You don't talk down to them, but you don't talk in a way that adults talk to each other with layers of theory of mind. You know, theory of mind isn't probably so much something that they'll latch on to. They'll be more literal in that regard, but definitely being honest and truthful and being respectful is a good thing to keep in mind.
Now, you save all your other more complex theories of mind and all that sort of material for your adult shows, which began. I mean, you did solo shows. You did Monday Magic at Dante's, did you?
Yeah. I started probably my adult shows there. I was obviously, as a kid, I did quite a few shows for friends and family in adult environments. But then, the big first ones would have been Monday Night Magic or Mitchum Magic or Dante's. So what was that? So Dante's was Magic Mondays. Was that right? Remind me. What's the history?
There was Magic Mondays, and then you moved on to Top Hat Tuesdays, and now you're doing Slight Night on Wednesdays. So I guess you're going to have to come up with
start with a W, shouldn't it?
You got to have something for Wednesdays now.
Precisely, yes. And then there was Mitchum Magic. It's been there's been a rich history of magic in Melbourne over the last few decades.
But you did team up with Luke and Vyom in A Modern Deception, and I'm just going to show a very quick clip because you did some previews for Modern Deception when it first came out.
Thank you very much, Tom. Thank you for helping. I'm Alex. We're here from A Modern Deception. What I need you to do is just, I want you to pick a card in your mind. So if you've got one just get one in your mind, yeah? And I want you to concentrate on that card and get a really strong image of the card in your mind and just see whether it's a black or a red card. I'm thinking red, but it could be black, but I'm going to go with red, and I want you to also think of whether it's a low card, a high card, or a middle card, but I'm leaning towards low, and I want you to concentrate on which card it is. Now, if we have a look down here, this is our show, Modern Deception. It's coming up here, this is our flyer. What card did you pick? Now, you could have picked any card, right? But you're thinking of the two of diamonds. Have a look what's underneath the flyer. It's a little fun that the one...
Hey, you gotta be kidding me!
Cheers, buddy.
That is unbelievable.
And if you get a chance...
That's right. That was from our first show at the Comedy Festival back in 2011. So that was when we first joined together. It was Luke that had the idea of doing a three-person act. And then I think we were obviously inspired by the experiences with Dante's, and we could see how, and obviously what was happening, was it Dante's? Anyway, and then there were other venues. We were inspired by what we could see the benefits in having, acts going after each other, and we could see that you could do something that wasn't just the sum of the parts. You could create something bigger, and there must have been, having an MC that threads everything together was a big learning experience. But for me, because I was studying performing arts, I saw that even beyond that, we could really go a lot further with combining our routines and coming up with bigger ways and more concrete ways to have storylines and thread things together. So I got some friends of mine involved. I had directors over the years. We had a different director each year for 5 years, pretty much all of them through my friendship group during a student theatre and performing arts studies at Monash. So yes, we had a lot of input from people from that side of things, and then we had a friend of mine who was a writer come in and get involved in one of the shows as well. So yes, it was a big learning experience for all of us.
And there was certainly a lot of irony in those shows.
You hopefully won't be seeing any more of that tacky, old-fashioned magic. So hopefully, no more of this, or any of this stuff.
Okay, we're done. We'll get when that stuff gets horrible.
So we can get on with the show, yeah?
Yeah, I think so. We did some pretty risky stuff, like some race stuff. We had some race commentary in there. I don't know what we were thinking. We did one show which was a parody of a morning TV show, and there was the on-screen and off-screen aspect to the show. So whenever they would cut to an ad break, the show would continue and the magic would continue, but it was obviously while the live show was dark. It was very complicated. The premise was that we had been booked as guests on the show, but the host had mysteriously died 5 minutes before airtime. So we were basically shoved onto stage, onto studio floor to cover for that morning's episode of the morning show. And yes, it was messy, to say the least.
But creative.
Yeah, definitely. A big, I think I've always said that, you've got to take risks. You've got to push further before you pull back.
Absolutely. And so what parts of Modern Deception moved over into Gentlemen of Deceit?
Well, Gentlemen of Deceit was the first year we did, we rebranded, I guess, as Gentlemen of Deceit. We had a very good friend of mine, Daniel, direct the show, and he's gone on to direct with Nina and, the MTC and STC. So he's got a lot of experience in telling stories on stage, and he really bought the idea that he wanted us to really cut through the artifice a lot and make it very clear that we were being honest, truthful portrayals of ourselves on stage, but with those elements of irony and conceit over the top, all of the premises that happened through the show. So that was probably the year that we kind of transitioned away from the slightly artificial sort of stereotypical melodramatic, that's what I'm looking for, that more heightened version, to a more, that's where we really found what we do well. And we took a lot of those lessons that he taught us into preparing for Australia's Got Talent and other TV spots and things overseas. Yeah. So that was a big turning point.
So Gentlemen of Deceit was more, was less of a storyline through the whole show and more of a series of vignettes, perhaps.
Yeah, Gentlemen of Deceit was probably more, it was built around the routines, but we tried to put more genuine jeopardy into the show. So we tried to have some aspects of it which felt truthful and immediate. So as opposed to it being clearly just a concept show, as opposed to it being like like the Steinmeier kind of play show, play magic act. What's the term for that? Like the dream, the artist's dream. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do, but I don't recall the term.
Yeah. Anyway, so less sort of artificial and less, like a play, like a premise, and more making it feel genuine and making it feel like there's real stakes involved. And then the magic, I think, was a lot stronger in that show too. And then having the direction was a lot tighter. There's a lot, it's not all in the actual construction of the show and the narrative. It's also in the direction and all of those points that we were given about being more truthful and being more honest in our sort of presentational style was a big shift in where we went and what we then ended up carrying through with everything else we did since then.
And so any boy band, they have very clearly defined roles. What are the characters that you three were playing?
We probably had positions on the spectrum of the magician, so one end you've got the hyper stylized sort of suave, kind of a lot of sizzle and a lot of steak, Copperfield sort of style. Then on the other side, there's the Leonard Green, the hyper underplayed, the technician sort of side of things. And then sort of Luke fell at one end, I won't say which end, but you can follow my hand. And Viom and I sort of were more towards the other end of the scale. But we played a lot with, I guess, with just a truthful dynamic. So, without it really falling into archetypes, we sort of tried to play more on each other's quirks. So we played on Viom having a kind of a medical background a little bit as well. And so we, in a way, probably more in the creation of the show, our different personalities played a bigger role in terms of how the shows sort of were developed.
And then when you got onto AGT, were you able to exploit that a little bit further?
I guess, yeah. On AGT, we probably realized that the priority was to present the act as a whole, to not try to crowbar in, character differences, so differential sort of parts of the characters, not to make one character really silly and one character really serious. We decided we weren't going to put those in just for the sake of it. We decided that we were more going to be focusing on creating a really cool end product, really cool magic piece, and that we would find those small beats we realized that we always needed to have a shared spread of like magic hero beats, if that makes sense. So we wanted to, everything we did, there always had to be at least 3 hero moments in the act. So and then we would obviously share the delivery of those. But then within that, we would kind of find, say for example, hypothetically, Card in Orange, say as an act. Not that we really did that. We did that a little bit, but we would say that one person's role was destroying the object, and one person's role is redeeming the situation. We'd kind of play into those those compartments in a way, but we didn't kind of push in the fake attention too much. We played with that a little bit early days. That was pre Gentleman of Deceit.
Well, I like the fact that it could easily slip into one main magician and 2 assistants, or even just 2 magicians and 1 bumbling assistant or something like that. But you did avoid those stereotypes, as you said.
Yeah, we went more the boy band route of equally sharing the role. I think we realized pretty quickly that sort of Lane and Woodley-esque, that Laurel and Hardy style dynamic wasn't really going to fly. That belongs more in the purview of sketch stand-up comedy, and that to try to make that work in a magic context doesn't really make sense, because magicians need to inherently have some kind of power, perceived power in the character they play. And so to have one idiot, we probably more fall into that in that kids stuff. With the kids magic, you can have one character that is a bit of an idiot, but still stumbles upon the solution, the magical outcome, sort of organically or haphazardly. And one character who's more frustrated and the straight man sort of position. But yeah, with the adult stuff, we realized that kind of that silly layer wasn't really going to fly.
Well, AGT was very successful for you. You got through to the grand final. Here's the most important question. Who got the most fan mail?
Probably Viom since then, if you add up all of our collective fan mail, I'd say, especially with Viom recently, with all of the amazing work he's been doing in the science communication, medical communications.
Well,
we had a good time. We got to do some pretty cool things after that with some big shows, and it probably was about a 12-month period that kind of, or maybe 12, 18 months. And then I think personally, I'm kind of glad that it petered out, because I think if it had kept going, I don't think I'd own a house, put it that way. I don't think I'd be here right now. I think, of course we're all here right now with what's happening right now, but I think being able to be a bit more settled and a bit more in one place and just doing gigs is probably something that I enjoy, and I think Luke and Viom are the same.
Well, it's always hard holding a band together, whether it be a musical band or a magical band. There's always challenges because you get this fantastic gig, but someone else is already booked, or it's the logistics are very, very difficult. But you did, at least while you were riding the wave, you did get to play the Sydney Opera House.
We are Gentlemen of Deceit. We did some crazy things on Australia's Got Talent this year.
No way!
One last supply of ice cream coming up. Oh! Now we want you to come and see it for yourselves.
For this show, we are taking magic to the next level. It's going from here to here.
We did, yes. We got to play the Sydney Opera House, and that was some of our best memories, absolutely, doing shows there. And we played the Athenaeum Theatre in Melbourne, and then benefited from other weird and wild opportunities, like being flown to Taipei to entertain at a billionaire's 75th birthday. And and going off to Germany and Italy for TV appearances, and then America for AGT and the Castle and whatever else. So yes, it's been it was a wild ride.
I was going to ask about the Magic Castle appearance. That sort of came out of the blue to an extent and surprised a lot of people. They didn't expect suddenly that the Gentlemen of Deceit were there at the Magic Castle.
That's right. Yes. So we were beneficiaries of the ingenuity and spontaneity of Simon Coronel, really, who obviously with the Magic Castle, there's kind of the understanding is that you have to be a member to perform there, of course, and so we were just there as guests, and Simon essentially basically lobbied our case to the entertainment director, Mr. Goldfinger, and put us forward and said, oh, they've come from Australia, basically just cried a sob story for us on our behalf, you know, just told him how long it took for us to fly from Melbourne to LA, which I think when Americans hear that's a big thing because they've never comprehended such a long flight before. So long story short, Simon managed to elbow us into a spot into one of the open mic rooms, I guess, so to speak, the rooms where members can perform, and we got to do that. And then Mr. Goldfinger saw us do the act, and then invited us back a year or so later to do a run, which was a phenomenal experience.
And of course, you know, you talk about it's petered out, but you did mention you were talking about doing another comedy festival season with Gentlemen of Deceit.
Yeah, that's true. So I think if the stars aligned, I think, you know, you might see Gentlemen of Deceit on a poster somewhere again. And I think I you know, we'll see. I think there's space for that. It's more, I think it's important to do everything for the right reason and not think that you're doing something just because you should or you have to. And, you know, I think end of the day, be happy with what you're doing and don't constantly yearn for the never. And and then it will happen eventually.
We'll definitely look forward to seeing more Gentlemen of Deceit adventures. And I'm sure it will probably be like, you know, when they make a fantastic hit movie and they've got to do the sequel, they're all sitting there going, yeah, well, we'll just wait till we get the right script.
Yeah, that might be a good way to put it.
Now, of course, you also had another run end, unfortunately, which was your very, very long-running adventure on Kids WB.
That's right. Yes, I was pretty much a semi-regular guest there for about 8 years or so, 9 years, and then yes, that just obviously the show ended and things changed in that space, and yes, it's no longer. But that was a fantastic experience while it was happening, and a great way to reach a pretty big audience of children around Australia, I think. That's what they tell us. That's what they told us with the ratings. So yes, it was a shame to see that disappear one day.
So how many appearances would you say you did on that show?
Oh gosh, I guess probably upwards of 20, maybe 20 to 30, I'd say, or so. Yeah, I mean, appearances or segments, because I would have done 3 to 4 segments each appearance.
Well, that's true. That's true.
So yeah, I would have been, each time I was there on the whole morning, through the morning. So yes, and it was good. The people who did the show were keen to produce some interesting content, and I was able to do, like, I was there as the guest for the opening of the season one year, and they were happy to let some more, you know, thought out things happen on air, and yeah, it was good fun. And obviously Anthony had a good run, and you and Nick Johnson, so it was a good incubator for a lot of Melbourne magicians for many years.
Well, I'll put a link down there to your YouTube channel, because that's where you've got most of your clips listed, and people can watch them. There's some fantastic stuff on there. But I just try to think how many tricks, because you must have got to the point where they'd call you up and say, we want you again. You'd be like, I don't know what to do.
I did, and then obviously you can't do anything with branding, so that was another, you know, limitation. I think I ended up basically having a long list that I would cycle through eventually, and whenever a new male host arrived as well, that was a good opportunity to go back through some of the back catalogue. But they pretty early told me that their audience didn't really stick around for much longer than 2 years. So logically, if you think about it, as the wheel turns, things can come back. But I didn't repeat myself that much. I'm glad to say I did push it and I would have done a lot on that show. I'm sure Anthony was the same. Anthony would have gone deep into the barrel for that one too.
I have a feeling Anthony did his bag of nothing more than once.
True, but maybe it was just the same bag. Maybe that was just a continuation, a meta bag across the years of nothing.
Still hasn't emptied it yet. But
10 shows.
Were there any tricks that were extremely challenging for you on the day? Because I mean, you were pretty much taping live to tape.
Yes, that you had to basically argue your own case a bit on the show. You would, insist on watching the footage back to make sure there weren't anything that wasn't meant to be seen caught on camera, because they would have a pretty ruthless filming schedule. They'd film about 50 segments, I think 40 to 50 segments per filming day. So they would take care of a whole week's worth of shows in one day. So they were keen to move on. But there were definitely occasions where things wouldn't quite work the way you expected with the hosts. And it was probably the biggest challenge was just establishing the need to, the instincts for the hosts might be to create content constantly. Whereas, and the idea that the magic in itself is content, and like if the trick just happened in a vacuum, that would be 4 minutes of content right there. It was about kind of establishing that eventually. I think probably about year 5, I learned that. I figured that out of my 8 years on the show.
I think one of the challenges on that particular show, more than any others, is that the hosts do not stop talking.
Well, as I said, the hosts, I think, are trained that, and normally the guests they have on are, if they're interviewing a basketball player, the basketball player is just there to talk to them, essentially. So it's, in a way, they need to make a conscious reset for a magic act, because, as we know, there's a finite sort of time frame that a magic trick takes to play through. So in a way, it was just to them to say that only respond to my questions or keep your random comedic interjections to a minimum, and really try to find a way out of them as quickly as possible, because their loose sort of banter was good in a way if you could harness it. Yes,
and to an extent it was also they're trying to promote their brand as well. They're trying to make sure they get as much airtime as possible.
I guess so. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't. I think their primary concern was dead time. That was their biggest worry, and for the sake of the show, dead air. So they didn't anything with intentional pauses. That was a scary prospect for them. So just about saying to them, and in a way, a lot of cases in the end, I would basically prep them in advance about what was going to happen without revealing the punchline. So, letting them know that it will appear that something's gone wrong, but just don't worry, it's fine. Let it play out as if something's gone wrong. It'll be fine at the end. And you figure out the ways of communicating that pretty clearly. Once you got that through, I think they were like, oh, okay, yeah, and they appreciated that information. And I've carried that through with especially live TV appearances, just being really clear to the host. I think the hosts prefer to know. They don't like the idea of them having an organic reaction and being tricked on camera. That's very scary to them. I almost think it's probably a good thing to, in a live context, to really give as much information as possible, and maybe leaving that little 10% where they'll get a genuine response. But making it as clear as possible, because you don't want them freaking out and worrying about having to throw back to the hosts or whatever else.
That's a good point, because there's been a few times when I've done shows where I've done the trick, and then they've had a technical problem, had to take it again, but their reactions are just the same. So essentially, it's sometimes better because they know what's going to come up. So sometimes I think it is good just to say, here's the trick, this is what's going to happen, then you're going to react, and I'll do this, and then we'll say that. And I would just make a little play. I
think you can be a bit strategic about it. You can leave leave out, 10%, leave just the unknown where you might get that little moment where they have a genuine freak out, and the audience can tell when a moment's genuine and when it's not. But yeah, exactly right. If you're a little bit clever about it, you can make sure that you're not going to fall into those moments where they panic. But then they'll still have those moments where they genuinely respond.
That's the ideal. I mean, there have been situations I know where I've watched the host react, but their reaction, even though that's the first time they've seen it, looks so incredibly false anyway. You're like, would have been if we just rehearsed this?
Yeah. They've been completely, on a different page. If they knew a little bit about what to expect and how to respond appropriately.
Well, it's amazing because a lot of times the hosts have got an earpiece in as well. So as you're saying, okay, so choose a card and stop anywhere you like, the director's saying, okay, we need to wrap this up. Can you just speed the magician along or something? And they're getting information from two different sources and still having to react genuinely. And sometimes it's only until you go, and that's your card. And they go, yes. And they're like, I don't know what happened there, but yeah, wow. TV is a funny beast.
Yes. Yeah, it's very true. Yes, you run the risk of having moments where they're completely not engaged because they're split focus and that they're going to completely react inappropriately with a magician makes good plot line or something.
Yeah.
Is this your card? It's not meant to be, and they go, of course it is.
Yes, that has happened. Yeah, that was my. What was it? Oh, sorry. Oh, it's so frustrating. Now, you've got a trick for us today, haven't you?
I do. Yes. It's a very, well, you might be able to help me create a little memento to help remember this, my first ever Zoom magic interview. I'm going to ask you to pick a card, which I'll then add to my special card collection, my special memento pack. So just as I flip through these cards, could you just call out stop for me, Tim, anywhere you like?
Stop.
Right there? Okay, well, we won't look at the card just yet. You know what? I'll bring you a little closer so you can see. There's a card. Okay, I've got my special collection right here. And I don't know if you can see. Can you see how these cards all kind of look similar? I mean, that looks kind of like a whole pack of tens of spades, doesn't it? I don't know why this is, but for some reason, everyone always picks the 10 of... Uh-oh. That's not good. Would you mind if I changed this jack into a 10? That wouldn't bother you, would it? You'd be okay if I did that? Okay. All right. Well, have a look. If I create a little impression of that 10, the jack will start to transform. Right. Normally this. Oh, here's an idea. How about if instead we just change the collection, right? I mean, you picked the Jack of Hearts. We may as well use the Jack of Hearts, right? Watch this one. Watch this 10. I'll just give that a snap. There we go. And that one changes too. How about this one? I'll give that one a rub. There you go. That one changes. And have a look at those. They look fairly well like jacks on the front and backs on the back, right? Yeah. Well, let's give this one a go. Check out this 10. That one changes too. We'll give this one a try as well. Watch carefully. A little rub. Oh, that one changes. And last one, nothing comes off, but if I rub it, there we go, and that's all Jacks of Hearts. There we go.
That is great. Now, I know you have a magic class to get off to, so if people do want to get a magic class with Alex Unexplainable, or Alex the Magician, or Alex de la Rambelje,
hey, we got that.
Follow that link down there and they'll be able to get a one-on-one magic class personalized to their level of expertise. And maybe they might even be able to learn. They probably can't learn that. That's too hard. But they'll learn some really good magic.
Definitely. I've had some pretty amazing kids who've, done some pretty intense stuff.
Well, it's good because we do have the Australian Junior Championships of Magic coming up. I think it is going to be postponed this year, but it will be going ahead. So, yes, if you are interested in magic, get onto it, learn some magic from Alex as soon as you can. Look, it's been great chatting with you. I would love to chat with you more, but you do have to race off to your next student. But thank you so much for spending the time, and we'll catch you later.
It's fun. Good to see you, Tim. Bye.